Once Upon a Sound. What does that have to do with Once Upon a Quantum Leap?
Hmm. Oh, I see where we're going with this.
Where
Yeah.
are we going with this, Paul?
We're going into quantum sound,
Quantum sound.
an examination of sound in the quantum framework, in the connected universe. So we'll have to talk about vibration, and also how vibration impacts us. And we'll probably also have to do something about our essence and our origins as vibratory beings and explain resonance and harmonics and octaval holographic vibration relationships. Not too technical, but
Not too technical,
yeah.
but maybe a little bit technical. This is why we're going to bring in our grounding research in intuitive reports, what intuitive reports are telling us, and all the different types of intuitive reports, what they have to say about the multiple facets of sound, the forms that they take, how it follows you throughout lifetimes, and how different forms and types of sound can also help heal.
How sound and vibration is useful for both individual and collective.
I love it. I'm excited.
Carry on.
Carry on, Paul. Before you say anything,
Yeah.
it has to come out of my mouth. Once upon a sound. What do you think about that?
Okay.
Once upon of like, oh my gosh, where do you begin with
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you talking.
where do you begin with telling more of a story about sound?
Yeah. Ooh, maybe that's why stories are so important, is because they're sound related.
That could be.
Just it just hits differently when it's sound. Music, just we just experience it differently than sight. So, we're going to talk about sound, everything to do with sound.
Yeah, specifically around what the intuitive reports have told us, have shared about sound. And we're going to talk about how all of the different types of intuitive reports have a unique spin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go for
I
it.
think it's the technology of the future is intuitive research and intuitive reports.
Mhm.
Um, they they really tap into this quantum connected realm and give us information directly from a connected perspective, like a fluid, interlaced, interwoven, connected perspective on life.
Why do you think we need to reference these reports when we're expanding our discussion around sound? What's so unique about
Yeah.
that?
Um, I think, well, so sound is it's it's a narrow bandwidth. What you call sound, what we call sound is what we can hear, and that's 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz roughly is our spectrum of what we can call hearing and sound. But really, it's just a little part of the pantheon of vibration experience that we can have. Sight is a whole different level of frequencies and vibrations. And things you can touch is a whole other set of frequencies and vibrations. So I think the most important thing about studying sound is because it's so accessible to us. It's everywhere. Most things that we know of can make a sound, can echo, can resonate, can vibrate and do vibrate. And that every vibration sound wise is also, you could call it holographic because in octave relationships it corresponds with light, and in octave harmonic relationships it corresponds with matter, denser vibrations. So whatever you study in the sound range has a correspondence with above and below. Oh, as above so below. Yeah. So by toning, sounding, listening to vibrations, listening to your own voice quality, you're also listening to above and below at the same time, the higher world and the lower world. That's my perspective.
Hmm.
on it. That it's all
Um,
connected, but it's accessible in the sound range.
I think this could be a good time to introduce some excerpts from an Atlantean intuitive report,
Oh, yeah.
where this one is about, it starts off with, so again, we talked about Atlantean. So let's talk about, Paul, you want to refresh us about a
Yeah.
time period or a cycle?
Well, we kind of lump everything into this bucket called Atlantean reports, but that also includes Lemurian time period and the crossover period of Atlantis and Lemuria, and then the Egyptian crossover period where there was overlap in between these different civilizations. We have an episode that talks about the cycles much more the where there's a long period of development of consciousness, and then there's a usually some kind of destruction cycle that happens, or mega destruction on the whole planet, and the species kind of starts over, but that gives an opportunity for genetic changes to happen and new populations and new versions of consciousness to arise. So
Yeah.
Atlantean reports refers to that long, long history of us on the planet in these different cycles of evolution.
And how many years? Like, I mean, right? Like if you like,
Hundreds of thousands of
it's so
years,
many.
and
It's
maybe even millions. I mean,
yeah.
there's propositions that make it sound like we go way back on this planet, maybe other planets, maybe Mars. Who
Yeah.
knows? There may have been populations on Mars, and then they blew themselves up and migrated to the next planet over to Earth to hey, let's try this planet since we destroyed the other one.
Yeah. So imagine that you, Paul, or me, Capucine, or anyone who's listening, that you have some type of a signature, a tonality signature, where you have been part of this um, galactic, cosmic Earth evolution. So so forget about what you look like now, or that you're a male or a female, or just forget about that. Just at the core of who you are is a traveler, it's a wanderer, it's a learner,
Yeah,
and that spark emanated at some point. And again, I don't want us to get into exactly where it started or not, because I don't know. But just
yeah,
imagine, just like let your imagination go into what if at the core of who I am had some beginnings in our evolutionary development. And so this particular intuitive report talks about um, an individual in the time period of Lemurian to early Atlantean time period. So
hmm,
again, don't know how many years ago, or we don't know, but it was a long time ago.
yeah,
And during that transition, there was no identification of individuals. Like we start off the podcast. Hi, I'm Paul. I'm Capucine. There's no identification. There was just an
yeah. No
essence or a presence,
differentiation, right?
nothing at all. Right. All there was awareness. Um, and those awarenesses would be described as experiences. But this particular report talks about um, this entity was fascinated with listening.
Yeah,
And so the listening then took on a form of um, giving their attention on discriminating what sounds are, just hearing the nuances of sound.
yeah,
And that this just became an emotional component that would eventually show up in the physical form. But there are sounds from an inner realm, that less dense realms. That's what you spoke about earlier, about this
hmm,
octaves that go up or higher. But that this one experienced all of this vibrational um, differentials. And this entity, or this presence, I'm not even sure what to call it, but this form
hmm,
at that time was just fascinated with the distinctions of those. And so, anyway, that's just an example of an intuitive report that connects us initially to this sound,
yeah,
this vibration, and being really enamored by it. Those would be my words. The report is not saying it was enamored. It's just that was the experience at the time.
Yeah. There's a drawing of the attention. We might take a step back and say, what is attention? Even
Hmm.
if we're going to be talking about put your attention on this sound or direct your attention to that sound. I mean, what is attention? One of the coolest explanations or visual um, explanations I had of attention was imagine a like a bedspread across your bed, and the bedspread is this cohesive whole. So that's consciousness. It's all interwoven together. All the fibers and fabric is all interwoven together, and you'd call it one bedspread. And then if you pinch some part of that bedspread and just pull it up, you could call that attention. And you might even call that an individual. Hey, I've got this individual emanation, peak out of this bedspread. It's still connected, it's still part of the bedspread, but it's focalized into a point, into a peak. And then that peak, that point can experience differently than the bedspread can experience. It's just a different way of experiencing as a point. That point can then have direction and point towards something and then can receive differently than the bedspread can perceive
Yeah,
and
the intuitive
receive.
report describes that as that this is part of a collective configuration
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. That there's a cosmic tunnel of consciousness, but this individual um, can easily access that. And it's much more accessible when one is attuning to that, and it's like, when you
Yeah.
peek your ears or you can see a dog, their ears kind of move around because they're like little antennas moving around.
Yeah.
But that peak that you described, it's still part of that collective configuration as well.
Right. Right.
And
Over time, over these in Atlantean reports that we've had, over time, there's a particular point in history, um, not too long ago, more like the fourth cycle of Atlantis, where we kind of forgot that we were connected with the rest of the bedspread of consciousness, and we started really believing that we were just this little pokey part that's sticking up,
mhm.
and that was separate, and we had to find our way back to the bedspread. We've got to, how do I do that? If I say enough prayers and if I'm a good enough person and I, give the right amount of money to the right people, then I will be assured that I will find my way back into this bedspread. And meanwhile, you never left. So that's the cosmic joke that we've always been where we are thinking we need to get back to. That's kind
Yeah,
of ironic.
another intuitive report says when this one attunes on a broader level, it's easier for this one to settle, relax, and receive.
Yeah.
So again,
Attunement
yeah, attunement is
is
another.
that octave harmonic kind
Mhm.
of relationship. And I think over time we just forgot how to, bump up our tuning mechanism and sense these higher vibrations or lower vibrations.
Mhm.
And that's part of the forgetting of we're part of this full spectrum of
Mhm.
vibration. We think we're this little band of just me, just individualness. That's why I think sound is so important, is it can get us back into that octaval harmonic relationship again.
Well, so what would be the benefit of that? And this other intuitive report, Atlantean, makes a suggestion because this particular report talks about the need for this one to understand forgiveness and in ways that will drive her to be less harsh on herself and others.
Hmm.
But so this now we're talking about attunement to those frequencies and then how that helps. That's where healing starts coming in. So the
Yeah.
example it gives here is would suggest this one to be forgiving of the ways that this one drives the self and the ways that this one is harsh with the self rather than gentle.
Yeah.
This one knows the frequency of gentleness and convey this to the self. So, again, an example of how the intuitive reports reference sound, listening, energy, vibration, frequency. But now we're moving into describing a quality, which is gentleness, as also
Mhm.
having a frequency.
Isn't that the coolest thing?
Isn't
That,
that?
we think of vibration as sound and light, and maybe really dense vibration is matter, like this table or this desk. But really, a concept is a vibration, an attitude is a vibration, um, a group's ideal could be a vibrational pattern. It's a frequency. It's a pattern that you can tune into. Like you could tune into a group's attitude or an ideal. Everyone could tune into that and lock in on that and say, "Yeah, we are now all sharing this particular frequency. We're sharing this particular idea or ideal." And
Well,
in this one, gentleness, a frequency of gentleness, you can tune into what that feels like, what that vibration then does in the rest of your spectrum, and try to hold that particular frequency in you.
is that not powerful medicine if healing, especially if you're in a relationship?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, and I,
Tune into the frequency of love, or tune into the frequency of cooperation, or tune, yeah.
so even though this is an Atlantean report, my guess is that when it says this one knows the frequency of gentleness, there's probably an element of understandings of that pattern of gentleness, part of the
Mm-hmm.
Dharma,
Right.
um, and that it can be, it just when and again it goes back to the attention. It's like if you give your attention to being angry at yourself, being mad at yourself, that's a different frequency too.
Yeah.
But when you give your attention to being gentle on yourself, that can help you move out of that other frequency that's moving you in that lower, denser matter.
Yeah. So ultimately, it really depends on that drawing up an analogy of the bedspread, that point. Where are you going to point your point? Are you going to point it at this frequency over here? Or are you going to point it at that frequency over there? Are you going to dwell in anger and pain and suffering? Or are you going to dwell in love and cooperation and tenderness? Or we can move that point of attention and place it, and then whatever you point it towards, you start merging with that. That's the
Yeah,
coolest thing.
that is
That's
so
what
cool.
a great system.
And then we switch over to a creative mind report,
Hmm.
which tells us how this form of expression of this of another individual is really trying to harness and or connect with this creative portion. So this particular creative mind starts with that there's a momentum that this one has desired, that there's a determination to access the past, but that determination is also bringing for it that the mind needs to, or that this individual is challenged to be uh, steady and focused and the attention so that this one can be present. So back to your
Mm-hmm.
analogy of being of the attention. So this one actually says, yeah, good Lord, you've got all of these frequencies and dimensions. It says that everything is
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously moving around. It's all
Oh, yeah.
over.
Chaotic. Yeah.
Very chaotic. So
Yeah.
there's even those sounds are doof, bouncing around, bing, 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 bing. But then it says, however, it's very important because that's the challenge where you're at right now is to steady your focus, bring your attention to the present.
Mm-hmm.
And this will help ease the overwhelmness that you experience. And then
Yeah.
it gives a suggestion. And the suggestion is to begin to synchronize and synchronicity, that's going to be the most helpful for this one. Again, other sound terminology.
Hmm.
Synchronize and synchronicity. Understanding it completely, exploring it completely, using sound tones, simple tones, a tuning fork could quickly synchronize this one in all levels of consciousness in this one's energy field.
Yeah, there's that octave harmonic relationship. So what
Mhm.
you tune to here is going to relate to here and also here and also here and also here. A purity and a singularity with something like a tuning fork. That'll get you, bing, very particular tone, simple. It's less chaotic. It's more of a pure tone, and that can help settle the mind down from pinging all over the place, like you said,
Mhm.
with chaotic vibration.
And then what will happen is because the tones are sinking in, it's creating another domino effect with the body,
Yeah,
right? And so then the body is also going to do what it needs to. Maybe you've been holding on to things. Well, the body may experience some dis-ease or discomfort after
yeah.
that. Then we go
So
back.
every thought you have, we
Mhm.
talked about ideals or the frequency of gentleness. Every thought that you have is also a vibration. It's a sound. We say I was talking to myself the other day. Yeah, there's actually sound vibration going on in your mind. And if you have a lot of thoughts going off like that, you got like a crowd in your mind.
Yeah.
And tuning into a singular sound can help just simplify all of that busyness and all of that pinging, the reverberations in the mind. There was
Hmm.
a health analysis I found here. Yeah, it's a health analysis, and it gave these suggestions for. It said sound healing would be supportive. I'm going to paraphrase here that sound can synchronize all levels of consciousness: the mental, the emotional, the physical. Um, Experiences with singing bowls or flutes or voice or gongs or chanting, all of these can help arrest the attention, hold the attention steady so that there's not such chaos in the thinking and the thoughts.
Hmm.
And then that then ripples into all of the other levels of consciousness for this person.
God, this is really important for especially a family environment for parents
Yeah.
and the environment you create for your children. And this is again, a lot of different experts in different fields have talked about how just the home environment is, you could have a loving family, quote, loving environment where people, maybe the parents contain their emotions so much just so as not to disrupt this field. But in reality, kids can pick up on those tonalities within the mind, even if you're not speaking it. But then what's
Yeah.
also much more harsh is when verbally their voice is they're saying these awful things. I mean, just that's also
Yeah.
sending
Yeah.
another,
Thinking it and keeping it in is not, it's not quite good enough
no.
because it's still pinging around in there and it's still
Yep.
generating the vibration. It's just not being physicalized, but it's still happening.
Yes, it
So,
does.
yeah, thinking it and not saying it, you might as well say it out loud and, listen to your own voice and self correct because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thoughts.
Mhm.
More and more, I think, as we evolve our species, um, less and less is going to be able to be secret just because that uh, more and more we'll be able to tune into a wider band of frequencies, which is going to include thought
Yeah.
frequencies, telepathy. We had it way back when, back
Right.
in the Lemuria when we were the bedspread and we were all connected. It was shared thinking, and it was an experience of we. But when we got to these points of individuality, we lost our telepathic abilities. And I think we're going to be getting those back as we evolve this species.
Well, I will do a true confession here. I do think that that's a, a deep understanding I've developed. When I was a little kid, we were part of a dance group, and my mom was talking to, I must have been 8 years old at the time, standing next to my mom as she's having a conversation with a woman, a young woman that was probably 18, 19, something like that. And they were having a conversation. And what the woman was saying to my mother, I could hear that she was lying.
Hmm.
The words that were coming out of her mouth did not match what I could see
The
behind
thoughts.
the
Yeah.
words of thoughts. I could see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in Spanish, I'm tugging at my mom's and I'm saying to her in Spanish, she's lying to you. She's not telling the truth. And here's my mom who hushes me up, no.
Yeah. That's rude. Yeah.
Yeah, then don't
Well,
say
it's ruder
that.
to be lying to somebody, but yeah.
Well, and then the girl, the young woman, also understood Spanish and she got so mad at me and she says, "You little brat, just shut up," or all this. So I got a couple of messages at the time.
Hmm.
For that experience, it was, but I'm so glad that the message I stayed with is I stayed true to trusting that what I heard was true.
Yeah. Trust your perception.
Now, I didn't have a parent that knew how to nurture that, and then again, I'm not saying that in blame with my mother.
Hmm.
You just kind of know what you know. But yeah, and even to this day, I think it's one of my greatest skills. Not that I'm invading people's thoughts or anything, but I'm a pretty good, I attune very clearly to what people are saying
Hmm.
and what I can hear. And then I can tell if there's contradictions or conflicts, or if the purity of their words are resonating with what they're really saying.
Yeah.
And I just hope to keep getting better at that. But there's also what, as you said, that will eventually be, I think all of us have that capacity to do that.
Yeah.
Then there's a
Oh, yeah. We have the
responsibility,
capacity.
right?
Sure.
Then there comes a responsibility with respecting and not involving too much with trying to redirect or coerce others to.
Right.
It's a little dance you do, but yeah,
Yeah. I think a lot of the reason that we don't really have the skill is that we don't believe we have the skill.
yeah,
And belief can just shut the door on a lot of things. Belief can shut the door on thinking that you can be a dancer or, a violinist or a painter. So believing that you can tune into thought or emotions in the room, that opens the door to developing that skill.
and then the key word there is to be honest with that opening
Yeah.
because
And
it's
responsible.
and
Yeah.
responsible. And another key thing that a creative mind report says is it would help this one to make peace with the journey that
Mm.
this one's own creative endeavor. That this one that this that this one's creative journey is her own life, that is her destiny. Like your own destiny is to create your own life. That's true for anybody.
Mm.
Your own destiny is how you create it.
Like you're your own sculptor
Mm-hmm.
or you are your own film
Right,
director.
right. But again,
Yeah.
using the tools of the umbrella word of sound, using the tools to help you attune to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I found another health analysis here that talks about soothing the self with sound.
Oh,
That's a
let's hear it.
that's a different angle on, it's one to just kind of quiet the mind down to a particular tone and help with the chaos. But here, this one talks about soothing herself through sound. It also says soothe through sound, through food, uh, cooling, like cooling the mind down
Mm-hmm.
and soothe the overheating in the nervous system. So
Mm.
she thinks so much and so intensely that there's actually a heating up of the nervous system and she needs to cool it down and there's ways that they give um, with sound.
Yep. And then I think of just even acupuncture, which you may not hear it,
Hmm.
but boy, those frequencies are moving within the body to
Yeah. Yeah.
synchronize.
And those little points that they put the needles in, those are
Mhm.
harmonic points in the body
Yep.
as well. Harmonics of those particular pulses, and the pulse is a vibration also. So,
Hmm.
everything, it's everywhere. Yeah. And you can access it with needles, or you can access it with a flute, or you can access that spectrum of vibrations with art. When you
Yes.
make a particular piece of art, someone's looking at that, and that's a vibration that is then it's touching their retina. So it's touching them and it's influencing their vibration.
Oh, that's just so beautiful. Even
Yeah.
nature. Like there's another health analysis. It says that, just spend time in nature where you
Yeah.
can be in the natural world, receive the natural rhythms of the planet, of the natural laws. Again, that's another action of receiving,
Yeah.
receiving. So you can be with it, but just can you really receive it?
Yeah.
This would be a way to be less structured, not to be so structured in the quote physical dimensions of the world, but just to be outside and receive the rhythm, receive the natural world and the natural laws. I think that's
There
just
was a
another.
there was a cool study I came across. Man, I cannot reference it, but I remember reading this when I was in college about there was somebody who did a study on bird sounds and what happens to the somata of plants in their leaves
Mhm.
when they sense the vibration of bird sounds, they actually it changes the ability of the leaf to take in carbon dioxide
Hmm.
and let out oxygen. So in the absence of bird sounds in the forest, these leaves behaved differently. They processed their respiration differently than when the bird sounds were present. That was just the coolest thing.
Oh my God, then you've got me on to, and I'm sorry that I can't remember this one, but this was a documentary about just how bees communicate with each
Yeah.
other, how they
Yeah.
communicate when they're pollinating, when
Yep.
I
It's not
mean,
just the little waggle dance of
that's
where
it.
the
Yeah.
food is, but it's also the rhythm of their wings,
Hmm.
the frequency of their flapping. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so again, just this health analysis closes it off by saying, I mean, giving, and we'll talk a little bit more about sounding devices, sounding tools.
Hmm.
But this one does say to experiment with singing bowls, flutes, gongs, the voice chanting. You mentioned that already.
Hmm.
But that every one of these sounds, whichever one we're talking about, that they resonate at different times in different ways. So that's why it's important to continue to experiment and explore. I mean, just as an example, go to someone else's house. Like when I was growing up, we weren't allowed to go to different people's houses. But then when we were, again, can you feel how that household feels different than yours?
Yeah.
I mean, just even a house, can have a different sound to it.
Yeah.
But then it also goes on to say, well, anyway, just experiment with that. Just experiment with
Tuning in to different vibrations. Yeah.
tuning into a workspace, how one area in a work environment feels different than another area.
Yeah. It could be the thoughts of the people there. It could be
Mhm.
the furniture. It could be the smells of the
That's right.
place there. Yeah. Yeah. Tuning
And then
into this bandwidth.
a key thing, this is universal, recognizing that sound can synchronize in all levels of consciousness. It can synchronize all levels. So it can
Yeah.
synchronize in all levels of consciousness and it can synchronize all levels of consciousness. So
Yeah.
it's doing both things.
Yeah.
And that's going
And
to
there
aid in healing as well.
are particular relationships of harmonics. Uh, there was some quote by Tesla who said something like, when humanity understands the relationship of three, six, and nine, then something magnificent will be available to humanity. Then
Mhm.
you'll understand the universe.
Mm.
Um, but it was very particularly, this octaval or harmonic relationship that is the key to understanding everything, the whole universe. And yeah, we talked about using tools. Everybody's got their favorite
Before you
tools.
jump to that though,
Oh,
Paul,
yeah,
now
yeah.
this is one. This is one of our all of these intuitive reports are favorite, but you know this one in particular about a Dharma report where this particular person was in a Shaolin. I mean, we interviewed him as a first time person, Barth Quinzer. So I'm
Hmm.
just going to put his name out there. But this report said this: it's important at these times that this one recognize that there's a need for perspective, for this one to be alone, for this one to reset, and for this one to hear this one's own voice. This is not meant to be an exclusion of others or to be self centered. This is a voice that moves this one in a direction of infinity. That's what you were just talking about.
Hmm.
This is a voice that moves this one in direction of infinity, connection, unification, oneness that is embodied, grounded, and centered.
Hmm.
So another way of attuning and how whatever those sounds are, however you're tuning, it's within the consciousness and it's part of all of consciousness.
Yeah.
That's beautiful,
Yeah. That's impressive.
isn't that though? So different tools. I mean, I'm looking at you like you want to say something. So before we go
Well,
into the
I'm
sounds,
thinking of voice now that you brought up, Barth.
mhm,
Um, yeah, there's something about your voice is so personal. The words you say, yes, but the ideas behind your words, yeah. But even the tonality and the expression of the voice itself is so personal, and yet it is so connected and universal. So back to that little drawing up that point of the bedspread analogy. Um, Whatever that point speaks is the voice of everything at that moment.
mhm.
And if there's another peak here, I'm not going to whack into my microphone. If this is a point and this is a point, and they're both speaking, isn't that the same thing that is speaking? It's that cohesive, that wholeness is speaking.
Yes.
So listening to your own voice automatically is listening to the voice of the whole at the
Mhm.
same time. It can lead you back to that awareness, that perspective of the voice of the whole. Anything the individual does, automatically the whole is doing that at that moment.
Beautiful. That is true. I can see that.
So that can trigger that memory of wholeness,
Which goes back
connectedness.
to how we started this is why are we even referencing the intuitive reports? Because there's something about what these reports share, what they tell us does connect us to this, to the wholeness, to the origin.
Hmm.
It
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 leads us back to that center point, yeah, that
it leads us
origin.
back to, it leads us inward, it leads us to right now, the present. So you're there's no time there.
Yeah.
So yes, we go back, but yet we're in it all the time, in that
Mm.
present time period at all times, if you are tuning to it.
When we had these, when we listened to these intuitive reports, when I was a student at the college, we it was it was done as a class. It was a class event or class project where the class would listen to these reports being given, and we'd take notes, and certain things would stand out to each individual person there. But you'd also listen for universals, universal truths or universal insights at the same time. So something that would personally be useful for you, but also Wow, yeah, everybody could tune into that
Mhm.
universal concept or that suggestion. And I think that's probably the most powerful use of these intuitive reports is to use it, yes, both personally, but also lead you back, like you were saying, to that core essence of everyone is connected, that
Mhm.
universality as well.
Yep. Yeah, because once you hear it, once you resonate with it, the veil's been lifted. I mean, you start listening for you just can't you can only hear you like speaking for myself, that's all I'm attuned toward.
Hmm.
I mean, so sifting through the other stuff, I still hear it, but what I'm really listening for is what is either not said or what cannot be heard.
Yeah.
And that is something that drives me. That is there.
There's I didn't pull them out, but there's a lot of reports that we have that reference listening to your guide, the voice of the guide, or
Mm.
the sound, or at least just trying to listen to the voice of the guide. Um, that's a whole other realm there. Other entities that are tuned to you and partnered with you for a lifetime. You call it your team. I call it my crew. It's
Mhm.
uh, it's supporting entities that are with you for a while, maybe have been with you for a long while, many lifetimes, and you're tuned to each other. You're on the same team, and so you're attuned with each other. And because of that tuning, there's a harmonic relationship, and therefore you could listen to them. And listening isn't just with the ears. Listening is um, it's directing that point of attention towards something. That's the skill of listening, is moving the attention toward.
Right. And we did talk about that at another time, uh, but all forms of spiritual practices also reinforce that, what you just said. And they
Hmm.
have methodologies and practices to attune to their crew or their team.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
some, in the Christian Catholic, it's
Tune to the angels, or
right there. It's
yeah,
it's called something else, and it's in Eastern religions, it's they're the divas, or I mean, and they're just
yeah,
they're
yeah.
different. But all of them are attuned. They're there to help you.
Available on the spectrum
Yeah,
to
good spec. Yep, good.
shift up to, yeah, match that
Mhm.
frequency, or at least an octave or harmonic relationship to that
Yeah.
frequency, and then
And
you
I
can
think
feel
this
it.
is what we currently refer to mystics. They have the capacity to do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's a mystical person. Well, I think that's what they're doing. They just have
yeah. They can
a re-
shift, yeah,
shift,
up
have a
or
keen
down.
ear, a super keen sense of listening and hearing and attuning to,
Yeah,
and
I
then helps them make more connections and be a lot more fluid. That goes into this infinity space.
yeah.
And
There's
again,
some people that you and I both have either read about or met or heard about that are able to sustain that tuning inness to multiple frequencies, even higher frequencies,
mhm,
as they're walking around everyday kind of consciousness. They're
yeah,
just they're in that zone,
yeah,
and they can also function in the world as well. They can pour a cup of tea, and they can also record a video, and they can also tune into these incredibly high spiritual insights and concepts at the same time.
yeah. And I would say all of our great leaders in the spiritual world have the capacity to do that, and that's probably what they're teaching. They're teaching you to attune to
Yeah.
this. I believe that about Jesus. I believe that about Gautama the Buddha. I believe that about Confucius. I mean, I just believe that of those are bigger names that have been around
Yeah,
universally,
then
but
there's a lot of them. Yeah.
there's a lot that we don't they're not readily available to the lips, but they're there. They've been there. They've practiced it and they teach it.
Yeah.
So there are
Interesting. Yeah.
ways, right, that those sounders can help. So go
Yeah.
for it, Paul. Talk to us about
Well,
sounders.
so these sounders, I don't know what else to call them, uh, either emit vibration or transmit vibration. There's a little bit of a difference there. I would think the easiest way to say it is that everything emits a vibration just because it is. Anything that is vibrating. And then some things are better than others at transmitting vibrations, like allowing something to pass through it. Some things are even good at resonating vibrations, like they'll gather, they'll capture, they'll consolidate, they'll focalize vibration, and then do something with it, direct it, perhaps. Like the a giant pyramid would do that. It collects vibration or photons or electrons, whatever those things are doing, and they'll consolidate that to a particular point, and then that produces an effect as well. But machines do that. Chanting, like a group chant, is another experience of that, where you've got multiple voices of this fabric that are sounding tones. Although some of the chants, group chants that I've been in were like, wow, okay, I don't think you're on key here. And we had to fight to try to bring this person into the fold.
Right.
But yeah, chanting are is a way that each individual can transmit maybe holy or higher spiritual vibrations or concepts together, and then they're joined together, and off they go to do their thing, their prayer or their intention. Um, Rocks and crystals, plants, everything automatically emits vibration, is vibration, and then some of them are better at transmitting. Crystals are, famous for that, being able to both receive and move vibration in particular frequencies. You
Mm-hmm.
can hold a crystal and sense that it is moving the vibration of whatever quality
Mm-hmm.
that it has. And some crystals have, you call it a personality, but it's more attuned to passing, transmitting particular frequencies than others. But planets, that in the Casey materials, in the Casey reports, he goes through all of the planets and talks about what each planet represents in consciousness and how it transmits and moves that particular vibration, makes it available for humanity to tune into the vibration of Jupiter, the vibration of Mars, or vibration of the sun. You can even move, if you're adept with moving your consciousness, like astral projection, etheric projection, you can move your consciousness into a planet and experience the the essence of that vibration. So these
Water.
sounders, they're everywhere all the time, and it's a matter of looking and seeing and listening with new ears and eyes, saying, how can I tune in to this? Or what would happen if I did tune into that? Or maybe that would be beneficial if I tuned into this or that.
We did a yeah, one of those less obvious sounders are also memories or imagination.
Yeah,
And one
yeah.
time as a little art workshop that I did a few times, but I did it with a group of prisoners and all of them men, about 20 men, and about out of those 20, about four of them would be lifers. So they did something pretty intense.
Hmm.
But I did an art um, workshop with them, and one of the projects was that they had to go back in their time and identify a couple of really key memories that stood out. They didn't have to explain it. They just had to picture what they were, and then they had a lot of different art materials where they were then express how they felt or what they remembered from that.
Hmm.
And then to hear each one of them um, use that tool of visual art to express it, but then use the tool of their memory and to use their voice to communicate what that memory was.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then me just asking a question of, now that you're not in that, it's a memory. So you have many years away from that experience. Now, what are your thoughts telling you about that memory?
Yeah.
You know, how has that hurt you, helped you, expanded? I don't know. I mean, what did it do for you then? Is it still the same memory? But how? So, in other words, even echoes, another word for sound,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
echoes of a memory, and then what your thoughts do with those memories. Those are all transmitting something, and then you either carry them with you without ever contemplating them, examining them,
Hmm.
or you do something to just have it right in front of you, and then maybe that will be released from your body, or maybe not, depends on what you do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It might not fit in your system anymore once you've
Mhm.
transmuted it enough
Right,
that the sound dissipates instead of echoing, 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 echoing.
right. But that was an example of not using the obvious sounders. I didn't use the drum. I didn't use tuning forks.
Yeah.
It was more my intentions with my thought and then my voice of what I communicated.
Yeah.
And then,
Imagination, yeah, like you said, is also
exactly.
the just as powerful as memory. So in different directions, past or future.
Hmm.
And ultimately, I mean, there really isn't a past and there isn't a future. There's just
Right.
right now. That's pretty much all we got. But we make these constructs of time so that we don't freak ourselves out and everything happens all at once.
Hmm.
We give ourselves a little lag time until the future comes and there's a little bit of a buffer in our minds, at least there's a little bit of buffer to the past. But I mean, the past is really, it's just another now. That, like those guys that remembered their events in their past that you worked with, um,
Hmm.
that was a now experience for them. You remember, you resonate with that memory, but it becomes a now as well.
Yeah.
And the future, you can imagine a trip to Europe, but you're experiencing it now. So it's
Oh,
still a now thing.
exactly. Yeah. I, yeah. Sound is a healer. Sound is in all of its octaves, as you would say it. Uh, Again, it's part of the free universe. It's there for you right there,
Yeah.
right? It is, yeah. I mean, maybe take a break from Googling information or, going to a class or reading a book. Just
Go
take
out
a
and
break.
listen to those bird sounds out there
That's
and
right.
let
Maybe
your
just take a
stomata
break from
open.
that and sit in silence for a bit. And if you want to call it meditation, you can do that too. But um, I think the gift is in you, and the gift is you, and those will surface when you acknowledge that you are worthy of receiving it, hearing it, and giving it back in a way. Sound.
There you go. You said
Okay.
it all.